All right, howdy, welcome back to Windley Mania, the greatest podcast you never heard of, brought to you by the greatest band that you have never heard of, that band being Windley. You have to follow at Windley_band on all the socials, keep up with the world of Windley. And what's the new thing? Blue Sky?
I haven't been on there. I made the account and I forgot to do anything.
Well, forget about it.
I'll probably get on there again.
All right, well, I'm the best in the world, Andrew Ridner, and with me as always, man's best friend, Devin Hopkins. Devin,
never gets old.
How's your week going, man?
How's my week? It's been a week. I'm trying to think if anything exciting happened. Not really.
No.
It's just been a week.
Just a bummer.
Not
this
a bummer.
Fog's been a bummer.
Oh yeah, I was like, it's the mist.
I want this to be a running thing of keeping the episodes timeless.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about it several times that we're doing all these, bulking them up, but. Yeah, it's foggy today.
It's very foggy.
I like to give a little hint. Like, when was this recorded?
Yeah.
Well, this comes out in like August or something.
Who knows when?
We're not alone in the storage unit today, though. We are with a friend, a musician, the band Bedlam Hour. He started all the way back in 1983.
83.
It's Chuck Walker.
Hello.
How you doing, sir?
Honored to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
I don't know if we ever really, as any of us, well, me and Devin have talked before.
We've said hello, but we haven't had a long conversation.
We've ran into each other at shows and stuff.
Yeah.
The one, I ran door at your show at Fresh Brewed a couple years ago, but y'all were busy all night, and I was doing my thing there.
That was a fun night. Oh my
That was
gosh.
a cool show. That was a really cool show.
That was our first time back playing live in 27 years. That particular show.
That was awesome. And it was pretty much packed the place. It was 140 people there or something like that.
Fun.
It was really
so
cool
fun.
night.
Let's do it again.
We'll do it again.
Let's do it every weekend.
Every weekend.
Bedlam Hour. Yeah, being interested in the local punk history in South Carolina and stuff. That was a band that definitely popped up in coming up and learning stuff. But it was really surprising to see that name on a flyer and they're playing a show right down the street from me. So that's cool. But yeah, Chuck, where are you from?
Well, I grew up in Rock Hill, South Carolina. You ever been to Carowinds?
Love Carowinds.
Yeah, it's just right there by Carowinds, on the way to Carowinds.
Well, I used to go to wrestling shows in Rock Hill.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Who'd you see?
What's the guy that ran those shows? Brian something. He had a promotion called Premier Wrestling Experience.
Where they put it out in the Armory somewhere?
It was the Armory.
Yeah. We used to go to dances there in high school also. Hey, my first foot-long sub there. I wasn't dancing much that night, but it's sub sandwiches in Rock Hill were new. It was 1980 or something. Substation 2 had opened.
What did you do before that?
I'd be lost.
The only place you could get a sub in Rock Hill, no joke, was Kmart. Kmart was the only place in Rock Hill that had a deli in 1976. Yeah. And I was a Boy Scout. My dad was one of our scout leaders, and once a month we went on a camping trip. So our ritual was we would always, because you had to pack your lunch for Friday night before you set up the tents and stuff. So our ritual was we'd go to Kmart and we'd buy those delicious ham subs at Kmart and pack our lunch and get a couple of cans of Pepsi or whatever and head out. Yeah. So, but yeah, that Armory. I danced many a jig there. I did the robot there. I did awkward versions of 80s dances there. You ever watch these 80s movies where kids are just kind of bopping? Yeah. That was me.
This was all on a full stomach? With a whole foot long?
Well, they cut it in little pieces. So I sort of regulated the ingestion throughout the night.
That's what Devin does. He eats 3 inches at a time.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's a talent, So, yeah. But yeah, and so I would and being the new wave kid in town, I would always request B-52's Rot Lobster, and the DJ would have it, and we'd all pogo. Because I couldn't really do any proper dance. I could do slow dancing a little bit, but yeah, jumping around and that kind of thing.
We're doing the foxtrot.
Yeah, I wish I could do that.
The Charlie rag. What is the other one?
The Charleston.
Charleston.
Yeah. Well, I would love to do that, and my wife and I have been threatening to take dance lessons for a couple of years. So we'll see. Retired people get to do that. Kind of thing.
They go up to North Myrtle and they do the shag.
Yeah.
That's the South Carolina one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I like the Austin Powers version, but
yeah, that's
I do that one. But But yeah, so Rock Hill, South Carolina, and man, it was just such a cool place to grow up. It was so fun. It was so fun. I was born in '65, and then we moved from North Carolina there in '68, and man, growing up in Rock Hill in the '70s and the '80s, 3 blocks from Winthrop, it was super cool. It was super cool.
Yeah.
Cool people, a lot of creative people there still, and had a wonderful childhood. Very nice. Yeah.
So a lot of creative people. That means like artists,
musicians, writers.
Yeah.
Big influence on me was my mom, because she worked at the Winthrop University bookstore in the textbook department, and this is when I was a little boy. And so anytime they would discontinue a book of art or novels, things that that we're just going to give away or whatever, or geometric puzzles, all kinds of board games that were educational, she could bring those home, and she set up a whole library in our house, and that's where I got a lot of my education. That, and also every night she would read 2 things to me. We had this, I still have it on my desk at school, this 1928 bound version of the collection of Edgar Allan Poe. So we had an old Bible and an old Edgar Allan Poe book, and I would hear Edgar Allan Poe in a Bible story every night. And then also it exposed me to a lot of different types of folks, because we had international professors there at Winthrop. So so I met professors from Nigeria, come visit our house, and gay folks, people that you didn't see every day in Rock Hill in 1970, for example. So it was cool. It was a good experience all the way around, and just getting to kind of hang out and grow up around that campus was cool. Plus, I got to see cool stuff there. It used to be an all-girls school, right, before they were co-ed. And so the sororities would throw the coolest haunted house ever. It was 3 stories of haunted house. It was a fundraiser for Children's Hospital or something. And all the Rock Hill kids could go there. And those girls would scare the poop out of you, man. And you're going up and downstairs with people chasing you. I mean, they got into it. They got into
awesome.
it. And then they used to have a big top circus that would come through there with the elephants and the whole thing. They set the big top out on the green at Winthrop. And I saw made quite an impact, my first 4-foot tall pile of elephant poop.
Wow.
You remember that. The one thing I regret not seeing there, it was in the Evening Herald, our local paper. It was on the front page. It was a school night, but in 1972, the hippies were all streaking up there, and I didn't get to see the streakers. That's when, back in the olden days, when hippies would take off all their clothes and run around. I think, though, based on the pictures, everybody would think it'd be a bunch of beautiful women running around naked. It was really just some gross, hairy hippie guys running around, with like super hairy chest and back. Yeah. So I think they probably thought girls were going to join them. I don't know how many actually did.
Sure.
I think the girls just ran away.
Yeah.
So, but that was the big story in the paper. That one, and then around that same time period, it was a big deal. So we had 2 celebrities that would land on the Rock Hill Mall roof from a helicopter. Santa Claus once a year, and then one time President Ford landed at the Rock Hill Mall and made a speech.
Wow.
President Ford.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it was a quick stop. I don't think he wanted to hang out in Rock Hill very long.
No.
And then the other thing that happened in Rock Hill, we're going to talk about the Throg tonight. He's our drummer that recently passed. He was my first drummer and a lifelong friend. So Carowinds is nearby, right? So Carowinds now, in their amphitheater, I think they have mostly Christian rock concerts and things like that. But back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, they'd have like straight up like raunchy rock concerts, right? So they have like Allman Brothers. My sister worked the door for Allman Brothers. She said like all the money was just soaking with beer.
Oh man.
Like she had to like peel the money apart. Yeah. But Molly Hatchet played in there one time, and so the big thing was our drummer Doug. He happened to be at Po' Boy's Country Cooking Restaurant on Cherry Road, and all of Molly Hatchet were in there eating like country fried steak and stuff.
Nice.
I wish I could have seen Molly Hatchet there, but yeah. So Rock Hill had all kinds of crazy things going on. But it was cool. So yeah, that's where I grew up and where I got my education and my influences, and then obviously my musical education. We can talk about that a little bit too.
Well, yeah. I mean, how did punk rock come first?
Gosh.
How did punk rock get into the picture over here?
Is this show going to run till 6 a.m.? Because we can really get into it now. All right, so here we go.
I got all night.
So let's talk about music. Okay. So if you listen to our record, you've ever heard our song "Win $1 Billion," the sax player is my oldest brother, Johnny. Johnny is 15 years older than me. He's going to be 75 this year. So Johnny came home from the Vietnam War and brought a guitar that he had made. Okay.
Wow.
What? And he taught me my first chords when I was like 4. So I learned a D chord, E minor chord. So I was playing Horse with No Name all the time and that kind of thing. My sister Susie's a killer guitar player. She showed me a couple of chords too. I think I did a C with her. And so I was playing guitar. I got a lot of my education in church choir, children's choir at Northside Baptist there in Rock Hill. We had a really, really good music teacher. I learned a lot of theory, harmonies, that kind of thing. And then about 4th grade, my friend Mike Clark and my friend Jay Fuel and I loved Aerosmith. And so we had an Aerosmith live record where they did like a cover of the Beatles Come Together and that kind of thing. And so we would kind of make a pretend rock band. So we had a set of bongos with loose heads. We had like a little toy guitar with like 2 or 3 strings, at Jay's house. And we would just listen to the Aerosmith record and just kind of bop around and beat the drums to it and play the little string to it and act like we were rock stars. So that was good. But then I got in the Boy Scouts, as I mentioned, Troop 60. And then we were Troop 240, I think. We started on Troop. And guys, what can I say? I was a member of the Beaver Patrol.
Oh, wow.
You heard it first. The Beaver Patrol. And I was the guy that carried the Beaver Patrol banner.
I was going to say, you got like a banner.
Yeah,
like
the banner
like
and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so my mom's was really good seamstress.
It wasn't
so
a rug?
The banner was like a burlap banner, like from the Middle Ages kind of thing. Okay. And Mom had found this fake beaver, I hope it was fake beaver fur somewhere. And we had this beaver hanging on our banner and all that stuff. Anyway, the Beaver Patrol had to go out one day in 6th grade on a Saturday and pick up trash. It was our service project for that month. Well, that was the day that they told us kids at Ebenezer Avenue Elementary School, hey, Sullivan Junior High is going to be signing kids up for band next year. If you want to do band, sign up. Well, I really wanted to play the clarinet. I was interested in clarinet. Well, I couldn't get there in time to get signed up because the service project was on a Saturday and it lasted till 3 o'clock. The kids were signing up for instruments with Petnell Music starting around 9 in the morning, and they were wrapping up about 4 o'clock. At this time, I also had 2 front teeth that would allow me to eat corn on the cob through a picket wire fence. I looked like Bugs Bunny. It was BB before braces. And so I got there, and the man from Petnell Music said, well, son, and the band director was there, what do you want to play next year? I'd like to play clarinet. I'm sorry, we're out of clarinets. All we've got left is the flute and percussion. And he said, you're not going to be able to play a flute based on my teeth, right? So I said, okay, I'll take percussion. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And so I got a little percussion kit. It was a Premier snare drum. It came with a set of bells. It came with a drum stand. It came with mallets and sticks. And man, I loved it. And I got good at it really quickly. My drum teacher, Scott Carroll, and he's still in music today, who's just an amazing teacher. This was 1977. And Steely Dan were really big at the time with Steve Gadd on the drums. And so he would bring in Steely Dan records, listen to those, and just kind of bop to them, and then start learning our rudiments and things. And so I got really good on the drums. And then in 8th grade, I got my first drum set. And my dad had just lost his job. He was in the textile industry, and at that time, the textiles were leaving the South. They were going south to Mexico, and then of course now they're in China, Vietnam, Indonesia, other places. But so my pop was in his 50s. So he's kind of in between jobs, but he worked really hard doing what he could to make money. And at that time, he spent $50 to give me money to buy a used drum set, and it was a really cool little drum set, 5-piece drum set, blue sparkle. It was a Japanese knockoff from the 60s of a Slingerland kit. And so I got that drum set, I got some cheap cymbals, and I decided I was going to learn the drums. And so I kept studying music at school. I was in the jazz band. I was an all-state jazz band. But as far as rock and roll goes, I got the Beatles' Greatest Hits double album, 67 to 70, the blue one that had all the psychedelic songs on it, Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, all that. And what I would do is I'd come home from school every day, and the track one was Strawberry Fields. I put on Strawberry Fields and listened to it. I'd learn the first 10 bars of it. The next day, I'd learn the next 10 bars. Within a week, I had that track done. Track 2, I spent 6 months. I learned every Beatles song on those 2 records, and I could play them verbatim. Next thing, my chops were getting better at school. I got the Yes Fragile album, the one with Roundabout on it. Took me a year to learn that one. I learned it. Then I started jamming with people, and all the drummers in Rock Hill. Most towns have a bunch of really good guitar players, a couple of decent drummers. Rock Hill had like 12 amazing drummers and 2 good guitar players. So we'd mostly just all get our drum sets together and jam, right? So the next record I learned was Rush 2112, and that was by 9th grade. And then the Police broke in 8th grade. The band The Police with Stuart Copeland. And so, we were
went immediately to expert mode.
Right. So, and that was a real challenge, but and then a couple of years later in high school, Missing Persons comes out, Terry Bozzio on the drums coming out of Zappa's band. Mm-hmm. And my God, and that's my guy right there. Yeah. So, we were always challenging ourselves. And Doug, the Throg, Ian Throgmorton, R.I.P., he and I, we were in the drum section together at Northwestern High School. And so all of us drummers, we push each other all the time just to do the best we could. And so that's kind of how I got into playing in rock bands and things like that. And I was playing drums with a lot of the older kids. So I was like in 9th and 10th grade, jamming with guys who were like 18, playing Beatles covers, playing Alice Cooper, Rolling Stones, that kind of thing. But a couple of things happened in that time period. When I was 14, I will never forget it in all my life. It was a Saturday night. I was in my PJs. I was at home. I was eating a bowl of cereal, and I was watching Saturday Night Live. And the most spiritual band I've ever seen came on there, the B-52s. It was like aliens had landed from another planet. It was that good. I had never seen anything like it, and that changed my life. So I immediately started trying to find their records, B-52s. Then Devo came on Don Kirshner's rock concert, and that was it. Then, by about 1980, Charlotte radio kind of switched from Southern rock to new wave. So I started hearing the Cars, the Knack came out that year, Blondie. Look at the drummers in those bands. Yeah. David Robinson, Clem Burke. We're talking like top tier. So it really caught my attention. And so I really started liking new wave at that point. But then the big turning point getting into... and another thing, too, and if you've heard my music, you can tell there's a lot of melody in it. You can tell it's a punk guy who grew up on melodic singer-songwriter stuff. You can tell it.
That's exactly how I described it to my girlfriend.
For real?
I was like, yeah. She was like, who are you talking to? It's like, this guy in this band. It's kind of like if a kid grew up liking 60s and 70s pop and made punk rock.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And so just kind of give you an example of how these universes collide all the time. So there used to be this rock station out of Lancaster, South Carolina called K99. And back in the day, before the internet and everything, they'd have contests, local contests. You'd call in, try to win a record, trivia contest. And so the question was, what was the Beatles' first #1 record in the United States? And it was I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I knew that. And so I won. And he said, well, you get a record from our record library. What would you like? I said, and I had just read an article in Cream or something about the Clash. I said, well, I'd like to hear the Clash. Do you have any Clash records? And so I won a copy of Give 'Em Enough Rope, which had just come out. And again, that was just a game changer. But the big thing that happened was between 11th and 12th grade, summer of 1982, I'm the youngest of 4 kids. My other brother, Chris, is a scientist, and he was working in aerospace in California. He had just graduated Clemson and got a really good job doing aerospace engineering in California at TRW at the time. And so for my 16th, it was my 16th birthday. For my 16th birthday, my parents gave me a plane ticket to go out and see my brother and hang out with him for about a month or 2 and then come back. So spend the summer in LA, which was cool, right? Yeah. Redondo Beach is where he lived. And so I did. And at that time, I was into prog rock and new wave. So I loved Genesis, King Crimson, Yes, Rush, B-52s, Blondie, Talking Heads, The Cars, Devo, that kind of stuff. Still love all those bands. And so, I was a new wave kid. When my brother comes home one day from the office, he says, "Hey, there's this new wave guy at my work." And he said, "There's a new wave concert Friday night. Would you like to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to go. That sounds good." And so he said, "It's this place called The Whiskey." And it's
there you go.
This band called Fear.
Oh wow. Man.
And I didn't know who Fear were. So I said, "That sounds great." And so we went. So it was down at the Whiskey, and we went, and the Whiskey's cool. It's got 2 levels. So there's a dance floor, what we would now call a mosh pit. And then there's like upper level. If you ever went to Amos's in Charlotte, it's like that. You can sit upstairs.
Okay.
Oh, House of Blues down here, same thing. So we sat upstairs. This was before MTV launched, right? Because remember, MTV came out in 82, but later in 82. So this screen comes down like you see in a classroom, like a projection screen, right? And they've got this old-timey projector, and it looks like they're using a Betamax tape. But apparently the record companies had already started making music videos, right?
Oh, wow.
So there was this pop group at the time, New Wave, called the Motels, and they had this ballad called Only the Lonely. So these kids are showing up, and they're punk looking. I mean, they look like the people I saw in 60 Minutes when they did the thing about how scary punk is, like when I was a kid. I remember seeing that. So they had mohawks, and they had shaved heads, and different kinds of clothes and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And I just thought it was so interesting. Well, when that video started playing, I saw kids throwing PBR cans at the screen and start, F you and all this stuff. The next thing I know, they've set the screen on fire.
Oh, no.
The screen is burning, like at the end of Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just like that, right? So they put the fire out, and then Aggression's a skate punk band. I think they were on Posh Boy. They came out first, really good. And that's the first time I ever saw moshing, skanking, stage diving. I've never seen it before. We didn't have any reference to that in South Carolina or Charlotte or anything. We didn't really have that. So I saw that. So, oh, wow, that's pretty wild. Then Fear comes out. Oh, my gosh. Lee Veen is picking fights with the audience before they even play a note. But then when they execute it, it's bluesy, it's rock and roll, it's polyrhythmic. It's so tight and good. And he's swearing and all this crazy stuff I've never seen before. And it's like, wow, that's so cool.
That is wild.
And then on Sunday nights on KROQ, they had a show called the Young Marquis and Stanley Show. And that was kind of like their new music, indie rock, local punk rock, new wave show. And so I would record that on cassette while I was visiting my brother. And I recorded this cassette that had X, Black Flag, Flock of Seagulls, Sparks.
I love Sparks.
King Crimson. I mean, just really, really good songs. And so, and of course, Simple Minds. I mean, just really good bands. And so I took that back to my garage rock band. We were, jamming on, hard rock, Pink Floyd and stuff like that. And I said, guys, we need to learn these songs. And so we did. So we did like Tommy Gun by The Clash, Blue Spark by X. We did a couple of Knack tunes, Good Girls Don't. We did a bunch of tunes like that, Blondie, One Way or Another. And really got a pretty good following with that. The band was called OU812, just like
Nice.
the Van Halen record, but
before,
way before.
Yeah.
And my first song I ever wrote for Bedlam Hour was called Teacher, way before Van Halen Hoffer Teacher, so who knows? But
Seems like they might have some questions.
well, hey, Wolfgang, if you want to just send me like $15, we'll be square.
15?
That's more than I made in the last year. So, but anyway, So that was cool. And then out of that, I started writing songs, crafting my own songs. And I had written some folk songs and stuff for different events before. Like I had a crush on a summer missionary. I wrote her a folk song. Her name was Denise. Later on, Fountains of Wayne had a song called Denise.
Denise.
Yeah. So anyway, but yes, I started writing songs. And so I wrote this song called Teacher. And my parents, for my senior year of high school for Christmas, gave me 1 hour studio time at one of my drummer friend's studio. He grew up, Jake Hunter, and opened a recording studio. And he did a lot of work in Charlotte. He worked as an intern on REM's Murmur album at Reflections and started his own studio, Sun Sound Recordings. And so I went in there and I got my guys from OU812. And that was John Cook on the bass, Doug Throgmorton on the drums, Rick Jones on guitar, me on guitar and singing. And we put out this song, Teacher. I had a crush on my math teacher. She was super cute. I don't think she really liked nerds. I think she was more into jocks, but it's cool. She was very nice.
Or adults.
Actually, she wasn't very nice. Yeah, exactly. That's true. Exactly. But anyway, so I wrote this song. It was just like a schoolboy crush on a teacher. And it's catchy. It was really catchy, and it was very influenced by B-52s. It sounded a lot like Strobe Light by B-52s because I thought that was just an amazing song. But it kind of had my own spin on it because I also like Velvet Underground, so it had some Velvet Underground kind of stuff going on in it. Anyway, we finished that up.
How much did an hour?
$25.
Okay,
It cost $25. That was it. So we went in, took 1 hour, bam, 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 mixed it. That was it. My buddy mixed it for free, so that was cool. So we got it on cassette. Everybody liked it. Then I went to USC the next year on a music scholarship, academic scholarship, and started working at the college radio station, WUSC. It got put in rotation. It got picked up on college radio around the South, and then Bedlam Hour was born. That was kind of how Bedlam Hour came from. The name comes from our friend Ray Timmons, who was this cool kid that moved down in 11th grade from New York and knew about the Ramones and had a leather jacket and the whole nine. So he educated us a lot. And we were just hanging out talking one day. Well, Doug and I are going to form a band. What do you think we should call it? I always thought Bedlam Hour would be a cool name. So that actually sounds cool. It was okay we use it? He's like, yeah. So that's what happened. And then once people started liking it, I just wrote a bunch of other songs. And our first show was in May 1984, at the Beat Club, which is now gone, but it was on Assembly Street in Columbia. It was a cool punk rock bar. And hardcore was starting to become known. Record stores were opening in Columbia, and so I bought the Minor Threat Out of Step record. I bought DYS, Brotherhood. I bought SSD, Get It Away. I bought Iron Cross, just a lot of stuff. So between working at the radio station, getting educated that way, buying a lot of records, listening to a lot of records, and then writing songs, that's kind of how Bedlam Hour was formed. And then my brother Johnny, who plays sax with me now, he funded our first 18-song cassette called Vegetable Harvest, which was released in 1985. And then from that, we started touring around the South, playing. We got picked up on some college radio just with cassette. But another game changer was 1986. 7 Seconds were on tour. Kevin Seconds from 7 Seconds was running Positive Force Records. It was a very important label at the time. And when they came to Columbia, I gave him a demo, and he called me back and said, I want to sign you guys.
Oh, man.
And so we got signed to Positive Force. My senior year of college, I was studying journalism with a minor in history. And so senior year, I graduated college, and then Bedlam Hour left to go on tour and tried to really make the full-time thing happen as long as I could. And we toured with 7 Seconds. That's insane. Then we ended up playing with making a lot of great friends. I'm straight edge. I don't make a big deal about it. It's just for me. But at the time, a lot of my friends were. And so we connected with a lot of bands. So we were friends with Token Entry, Youth of Today, 7 Seconds, Pledge Allegiance out of Richmond. We kind of had that bond. And it wasn't like now where it's like, you got to be this or that. It was more just like a chill thing. But so we played with a lot of those kind of bands.
That's awesome.
Well, let me back up to around the 82, 84 time period. Like what was going on with as far as were you aware of any like a scene or anything or
okay, so this is kind of cool. So where I grew up in Rock Hill, there was really no scene, but there were like a dozen of us plus our friends that like punk rock.
So were you going to like Charlotte and Columbia?
Yeah, the Milestone.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Milestone had good shows. And so, in fact, that's where I met Joe Young, R.I.P., and Jeff Clayton, because they worked at the Milestone. And I remember sitting with, it was the Violent Femmes came through on their first tour.
Nice.
And a bunch of us went up. We were at my friend Brent Lamford's house, and we would meet and go to Charlotte shows. We used to go to all the big rock concerts. First rock concert I ever saw was Rush, 1980, Permanent Waves tour.
Insane.
So we would pile in and go to the big shows. We'd go see Ozzy all the time. We'd go see, The Police with Joan Jett, Go-Go's with Flock of Seagulls, just killer shows. But then the Milestone had good shows too. At the time, R.E.M. had just broke, and they used to run the Milestone all the time. And then Let's Active, Mitch Easter's band, he produced R.E.M.'s records. They would come through, and so we'd go see Let's Active. We'd go see Violent Femmes. And I was at the Violent Femmes show, and I met Joe Young. Joe used to work at Record Bar in Charlotte, where I bought my first Class T-shirt. And Joe was sitting on the steps. I think he helped Bill Flowers out at the time, and he was wearing like a British flag T-shirt. Said, "Hey, man, I'm going to start a punk band. Are you a drummer?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "You want to play with us?" I said, "Well, I really kind of got my own thing going." And turns out later on, Doug, our drummer, went to play with Anti-Scene, and then later on with Gigi Allen. So,
wow.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. But yeah, so Rock Hill didn't really have a scene, but we could run up to Charlotte, and occasionally we get bands like Psychedelic Furs would come through. Some of the bigger, like major label type things, Ramones come through, that kind of thing. A lot of bands came through the Milestone, though. Dead Kennedys came through. It was a little bit before my time. Before I knew about Minor Threat, I didn't find out about them till my freshman year in college at USC when I bought the record. But looking back at the history now, they came to Charlotte March 18th, 1983, and played for 18 kids at the Milestone. Had I known, I would have put down my AP English.
I really got to applaud your memory.
Oh, I love it.
You're like, this date, this is where I got my first Clash shirt.
Yeah, I have
sub.
yeah. It's also right next door to where I had my first Chick-fil-A sandwich. So that's a big deal. And where my mom saw Tammy Faye shopping at the Woolworth right across the hall.
Wow.
But so Rock Hill we didn't really have seen, but we connected with the Charlotte kids.
Okay, yeah.
So then,
how did that connection work? Were you just
it was
by
all
going to
people in
shows?
bands or that were going to be in bands that loved music, basically. It's like us and the Anti-Scene.
Would you get a phone call from someone in Charlotte, or like
just run into them at the Milestone mostly, or the record store?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what happened there. But then go back to Sun Sound Studios. Jake Hunter, who was one of my drumming mentors, Northwestern Band drum section, opened his own studio. He recorded Bedlam Hour. That teacher tape took off. Mm-hmm. Then Vegetable Harvest took off and ended up doing well. So my punk rock friends were forming bands in Columbia. Mm. The next one that got recorded up at Sun Sounds was a band called Death Row. It was Bill, it was Laura, it was Chelsea, and it was Larry. So they were like an anarcho-communist hardcore band in the style of MDC or The Offenders, very political. In fact, Bill's solo record was a cello solo record, Blues for Chairman Mao. It don't get more commie than that, guy. It was on really thick vinyl. I remember that. It was probably made like with Chairman Mao's tears or something. But anyway, but these guys are great. You can check them out on YouTube. Their release is called Burn This Town, and they were real mentors to me my freshman year of college at USC. Here I was, this little Rock Hill kid, showing up, a little pencil neck geek, and they took me under their wing, and they were the nicest people in the world, and I could go to all their rehearsals. Also at the time, there was a band called the Blogos. That was Rick Griffith on the drums, John Wooten on lead guitar and vocals, and they were a goth punk band in the style of Early Cure, Christian Death, Killing Joke. And again, they all they showed me was love. All these people showed me was love, and it was just incredible. So Death Row goes up to Jake's. They record "Burn This Town," their record. Next up, some Rock Hill kids formed a band. Mike Sullivan, who was the first kid ever in Rock Hill to have a mohawk, real legit mohawk, and a nose piercing, and safety pins in his ears.
Oh man,
and he's going to be at our show in 2 weeks. I know it. Mike, I hope you come. I love you, man.
I bet the townspeople were like,
I guess that's not really a thing. I think of like the aesthetic,
right? And Mike and I were in the same scout troop, so we go back to Boy Scouts.
Wow.
But anyway, so Mike formed a band, Shattered Liberty. His band was named after one of my songs from the Vegetable Harvest record, Shattered Liberty, which I kind of modeled after Husker Du Land Speed record. I was trying to kind of get that sort of energy, and he loved it. So they put out their record from Jake's Sunsound Studios, Part Bent Sunday. Then in 1985, I'm the only original member, of course, but except for Johnny, my lineup changed. So John Cook, he was still in Rock Hill. We were in college now. I think Rick went to a different school. So the lineup ended up eventually being a three-piece. John Leroy, who was one of our demo producers and one of my best friends, a great guitar player, ended up playing bass. I played guitar, and we still had Doug on the drums. And then eventually Doug went with Annie. And then right after we got signed to Positive Force, Scott Fry, who was from Washington, D.C. and went to school with Dave Grohl, he comes down and he auditions for us and plays the drums.
Wow.
And he's the one that plays on the Cradle record, which you can hear on YouTube. And so he came in and learned all those songs, and we recorded that at Sun Sounds. And then after that, our friends in Anti-Schism, they're a very famous crust punk band. They actually recorded all their records there as well. And so, so a scene kind of did develop around sort of that offshoot of the early Bedlam Hour recordings, and just people got in the know, and then we all started touring. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what happened. But yeah, that 7 Seconds thing, I'm still great friends with Kevin and Angie Whitworth, who was instrumental in running that label and managed our band. Still great friends with them, and Angie's sister, Angel, great people. That was the game changer for us because it opened up so many opportunities. So we got to play with them, we got to travel, and then from that, 1986, the summer right after we got signed, basically, I was an intern, because remember I was a journalism major, I was an intern for Senator Fritz Hollings. And Fritz Hollings was the Democratic senator from South Carolina, and I worked in the press department for him. And that summer, I would work at the Senate, but I only had to work like 6 hours a day. And they would let us stay in the dorms at Georgetown University. And Georgetown University was right by Georgetown, D.C., where they had the Bayou Club, where I saw Anthrax, I saw the Ramones, I saw the Smithereens. They had a killer record store there. And in that record store, they had the Discord recordings. So Dag Nasty's first record had come out. So I'm in there kind of, hanging out, looking at records. I think I've probably got on a white T-shirt and jeans, combat boots. And I started talking to this guy, Ruben. We're looking at the Dag Nasty record. And we start talking, and he's like, so I'm in a band. Are you in a band? I'm like, yeah, I'm in this band from South Carolina called Bedlam Hour. Here's our cassette. I always carried like a bag of cassettes. Here's our cassette.
Always hustling.
And and he said, I'm in this band called Dane Bramage, and we practice over in Arlington. Do you want to come hang out at our practice? I'm like, yeah. So I go, and I walk over the Key Bridge. I get on the subway. I take the subway out to Arlington where they live, and I go there, and this band is just incredible. Check them out on YouTube, guys. Dane Bramage. Pull it up. So they're a three-piece band. They've got some influences that range from Husker Du, The Replacements, Led Zeppelin, Mountain, James Gang. I mean, they've really got a lot of good things going. These guys are punk, but they got a lot of good chops. And their drummer was especially good. He was only 16 years old. He played like John Bonham, like if John Bonham
I know what you're about to
and
say.
Grant Hart had a baby.
Yeah.
So at the end of the first practice, and they were being recorded by their friend Brendan.
Oh, God.
Okay.
So by the end of the first practice, I'm talking to Ruben, I'm talking to Dave, their bass player, from 76% Uncertain, the other band he did. And he said, how did you like music? I said, I really loved it. I said, I really enjoyed it. I love your songwriting. I love your singing. I love your guitar playing, bass playing. Your drummer's really, really good. How old is he? Oh, he's 16. How long has he been playing? He's really a guitar player. He just kind of picked it up. That's Dave Grohl. I'm like, oh my God.
When you said Dane Bramage, something like
Yeah,
awakened
yeah.
in my like
Yeah,
there was like a thing because he's talked
about that
He's
stuff.
in every
Yeah,
documentary,
yeah.
so he's talked about
Yeah.
the DC scene a lot.
Yeah,
and
and
Dane
he
Bramage
was
comes
so
up.
good.
Yeah,
so
DC,
good.
like,
and if you
and
listen to his
Scream.
playing, It's so tasty. You can tell it's him.
Yeah,
And you can
it's-
also hear, when you listen to the Dane Bremers record, especially the song Flannery, and by the way, I have a child named Flannery, okay? So that's how much I love the song and the author, Flannery O'Connor. But when you listen to the song, you can still hear elements of what was going to be Foo Fighters later in the songwriting. But anyway, super cool guys. And Ruben is a professional photographer in New York now. We're in touch. But just great guys. And then later on, remember I told you Scott Fry, our drummer, he went to high school with Dave, when Dave was in school. And they were friends. And later on he said, hey, Dave from Dane Bremers. I'm like, yeah. He just got signed up with Scream. I'm like, oh, no way, because we knew about Scream, and Scream used to come through.
Yeah.
And so then we started playing some gigs with Scream with Dave on the drums. I'm like, oh my God, it's so good, so good.
That's crazy.
Because they would come through all the time, right? So if anybody came through, and I mentioned our manager, Angie. So Angie moved to South Carolina to manage the band. Well, she's very highly connected because of the label. So I started promoting shows, and we called it Mosh All Productions. I had graduated from college. I was trying to do the band thing. I was working at Kinko's doing desktop publishing, and I was doing some computer management stuff, but it gave me flexibility to, number one, look weird, have weird hair, and number two, go on tour. So when Youth of Today came through town, they'd stay with us. When Verbal Assault came through town, they'd stay with us. We put on shows, 7 Seconds, Wolf Pack, all these bands. And so that was cool. But then the next thing was, it was fast forward about 1990. I'm at a party in Columbia, and my buddy Greg Broom works at the record store, Manifest Records. He said, hey, guess what I heard? What? Dave's playing drums for Nirvana. I'm like, what the heck? That's amazing. And then Scott Fry comes up and says, yeah, he got all this money. He just bought a Harley and a house in Duck, North Carolina. I'm like, oh, my God. So it was so cool. So we were so happy. And then years later, I did run into Dave when they Foo Fighters played Charlotte. I said hello, but just a super nice guy. And so that was kind of cool. The other thing that happened that same time period, 1987, December 20th, 1987, we got to play CBGB's Sunday matinee show with our label mates Token Entry. Our friend Mickey and his band, and then this band Cracked Down and Rest in Pieces. And so that was very educational. And that's kind of, if you've ever heard our song Frankenberry Mosh, that's kind of where that came from, because I just noticed how heavy the bands were playing. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And that's the first time I ever saw like breakdowns in music. And I noticed a lot of the skinheads out there were doing like this different kind of moshing. And it's what we call a two-step now, right? Okay. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to write something. So I went back and I just sat down and wrote the heaviest riff I could come up with. Da 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 da. I had the riff, right? So that's 87. That same 10-day stretch, we got to play the 930 Club and open for Kingface.
Is this always 7 Seconds, or is it a different tour?
This is just us. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So 7 Seconds got us out there. So now we're out doing our own thing.
I see.
And so we ran up to DC, and we played a 930 Club with Kingface. And all these stories have funny little, how it is in a band. Funny stuff happens all the time. The music's like 1% of the story, but so
all the rest is just hanging
the 930
out.
Club was amazing. We played with we had some metal friends, Iron Christ out of Maryland. They were on Nuclear Blast. So we got them a show, and then Kingface put us on the bill. So it was Kingface headlining, and then it was us, and then it was Iron Christ. And we made like $250, which I couldn't make that today probably at most shows. So except for the one you did. Thank you for that. It was cool. But then it was snowing outside, and we had a Volkswagen station wagon that we came up in, and that was with Doug on the drums and John Leroy on guitar. But we locked the keys in the car, and so and back in the day, in the 80s, I never wore a shirt. I just wore like a grass skirt and some tidy whities, and I had makeup all over my body and war paint and all this stuff.
I was watching some of y'all's videos that you have. I'm like, they have some really cool costumes.
Yeah, it had a lot of
They're doing
costumes.
some
It was
crazy
the 80s,
stuff.
but it was freezing cold. And so this really nice girl, Melissa Goldman, wherever you are, Melissa, thank you for your feather boa. I appreciate it. So I had a feather boa to keep me warm till the guy came, and then we were down like $90. But the New York show the week before, the reason we were in the station wagon was the New York show the week before. We had a band tour van, which was not very good. And so we had already blown one motor in it on the 7 Seconds tour outside of Richmond, and I had it fixed. But then the new motor blew up outside of New York, coming back from Seabees. And so what we had to do, it blew up on the New Jersey Turnpike. Mm-hmm. So what we had to do is we had to go on country roads all the way back to Columbia, only 35 miles an hour or less, stopping every hour to put in 8 quarts of oil because I threw a rod.
Jeez.
Oh, my God.
So, but we made $250.
There you go.
So it was fun. And it was a good opportunity.
Pay for it, I guess.
Right. I got $1 million worth of stories. But anyway, so that's that. And then what happens after that? Okay. So fast forward a little bit. 91, I get married. I go to grad school. We're still doing the band. By this time, John Leroy's gone. He went to grad school at Northwestern University. Adam Colasar joins on the bass. Scott Keneally joins on second guitar. Brent Long replaces Scott Fry on the drums. Brent leaves to go to grad school, and then our buddy Derek Roddy joins us on the drums. Derek Roddy is a very influential drum educator today. He's in the death metal scene.
Didn't he play? He played with you guys at the freshman show,
did.
Right?
You can tell he's got chops.
He auditioned for
Dream Theater.
Yes.
And he played in Nile, Malevolent Creation,
Yes.
Hate Eternal. I mean, he's really, really...
Oh, you played at Nile?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, really good. He's
that's
super
tough.
good.
That's tough stuff.
They call him One Take Roddy.
Really?
He played all those Nile records, Malevolent Creation records, one take.
Wow.
Yeah, and he also is the fill-in drummer for Anthrax. He played with some Anthrax
Holy
shows right after our show. He went and played like in front of
that's
20,000 people with Anthrax.
That's wild.
And then he came back and played with us in New York in front of 50 people, then went and played with Anthrax again in front of 20,000 people.
Wow.
So he's friends with Charlie
awesome.
Benanti. So anyway, so that was our lineup, and that's the lineup that we took on our 1992 U.S. tour, and then we added our friend Ed Baker on keyboards, and I wrote some industrial kind of punk rock stuff because I love Killing Joke, going back to the WSC influence and the Blowgoes. And then in 94 we did a Europe tour.
Right.
And I graduated from grad school, and then got my first teaching job
How
at
did the
Andrews
Europe
High.
tour go?
Yeah, we gotta talk about you.
Not a lot of,
Oh, Europe. Okay, yeah. So
we don't exactly talk.
Okay.
I don't think any of our guests have.
okay, all right, okay, Europe. Okay, so
Europe.
what happened was this book came out called "Book Your Own Effing Life,"
Oh,
and it was a newsprint thing that
Razor
had
King?
everybody before the internet, everybody that did shows locally, all the punk scenes around the world. And so our bass player Adam Colasar, he got on it. He was managing the band at the time, and he set us up a tour in Europe. And
As you do.
Yeah, he did it. He did it, and we were able to make it happen because we had enough. Our Right the Cradle record did very well in Germany and France. In fact, if you go on eBay now and look up that record, it's like 20 copies, always for sale in Germany, brand new. So, then we ended up on a compilation in France. We ended up on a compilation in Germany, a couple in Japan. So we had people that knew about our music, and so we got to go over there, and we would trade shows basically. So if the European kids came over, we'd help them get a show. But we didn't have work papers, and so what we did was we didn't take guitars or anything. We didn't take drumsticks. We had to be real careful about shipping our merch over, and that was an ordeal, which I can talk about, because we played a warm-up show in New York City, heading out, and then we flew over. But we would basically so we played with our buddy Swineflu in Edinburgh, Scotland, for example, and they were super cool. And so what we would do is, guys, thank you so much for letting us use your guitars and amps. We'll treat them with respect, but also here's bass strings, guitar strings, and several pairs of brand new drumsticks for you guys. We appreciate you guys. So we would give them accessories, and they would let us use their stuff. So so it was cool. So we played London. We played.
What time of year was this?
This was May of 1994.
Yeah, what shirt were you wearing?
I was wearing the Bedlam Hour European white tour shirt with Jack Kerouac holding a suitcase on it. But I kind of messed up because this is before the internet, and I misspelled Edinburgh, Scotland, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's all right. So anyway, we played London, we played Southampton, we played Preston, we played Wigan, we played Nottingham, Birmingham, we played Edinburgh, we played Lille, France, Yber, Belgium, It's Belgium, France, and the UK is where we went. We played with some German bands, but we couldn't get into Germany because they were already kind of opening up and hardcore was kind of happening. It was hard to get in there, not being big. So, but it was cool. So we got to play every night. We played in front of a couple hundred kids every night. We got paid well. They always made sure you had something to eat. They'd provide lodging or you stay with somebody. And all the bands were really, really nice. And it's kind of like a children's book. I think it's Patricia Polacco, Shake the Hand that shook the hand that shook the hand of Abraham Lincoln. I brushed greatness about 4 degrees out. For example, we played Birmingham, England, and it was just awesome. And I love Judas Priest, always have. And, of course, Black Sabbath. And so that night, we have this song, American Technology. You guys can check it out on YouTube. And a lot of these old songs that are just on YouTube, we're remastering, re-recording, re-releasing. Over the next 5 to 10 years, I have a release plan for all of our stuff. But basically, we have this song, American Technology, and it's got a break in it. I was trying to write it to sound like Christ on a Crutch and Voivod, but it's got a breakdown at the end that sounds like Judas Priest. And so I said, tonight we're going to do another thing coming at that breakdown. And so we did. Da, da, you got another thing coming. I mean, and we were killing it. If y'all watch our Live in Europe videos, we're on it. Like, you could tell we've been practicing our brains out because we were tight that whole tour. And people are passing me around. The whole place is a mosh pit. I'm getting passed all the way to the back. At the end of the show, this nice girl and her boyfriend come up. I think she's probably 21, 22 years old. I'm 27 at the time. She says, "Hey, that was so cool. Y'all played Judas Priest." I'm like, "Well, thank you. We appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed it." I'm KK Downing's babysitter. Oh my God. I'm like, "Oh my God, no way. Let me shake your hand. That is so cool."
Yeah.
And then we played in France with this band. And their bass player used to play for Falco.
Wow.
Rock Me Amadeus.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, and of course, Du Bist So Schön, which was his first hit. Going back to Northwestern High School, Herr Fox's German class, 11th grade, we listened to German New Wave all the time, and I was obsessed with German New Wave. Yeah. The big one was Trio Da Da Da. So that was cool. And then, let's see, in London, these 2 Israeli guys were drunk or something, and they stripped naked and danced on the stage while we played, which was quite surprising. I don't know. And then when we played in Belgium, in Ypres, which was the site of a famous World War I battle, and it's also called Ypres in the French, but if it's Flemish, it's Ypres. It was a little collective place, and they had like the guitar amp was like I wish I had one. Okay, so this PV head here, in the 70s, early 70s, they had a similar head with silver knobs. Yeah. And you see them all the time in pawn shops and stuff. This was like the, no joke, Eastern Bloc Soviet knockoff of a PV head, and that was the guitar amp. Well, it had no distortion, right? So I said, Scott, we got to go find some distortion. So we go out on the street in Ypres, and this guy looks so cool. He looks like Lemmy from Motorhead. He's got a beard and long curly hair. He's got on a battle vest. He's got a, what do he have on his, Black Sabbath. He had a Black Sabbath pin on his vest. He couldn't speak English. We couldn't speak Flemish or French. But we made a connection that he was a guitar player, and we could communicate distortion pedal.
Okay.
He brought a distortion pedal. I think his metal's on or something. And he came to the show, and we got him in free and his friend. And so we had the guitar amp that night. And so that was kind of a cool story. But then with our merch, it got there halfway through the tour, and the UK officials weren't real happy with us, but they still let us have it. So we were able to do that. And then our roadie was Richie Isaac. Richie Isaac, he used to play in the speed metal band Children's Choir out of Charleston. He's still a legend. He's still out there. Love you, Richie. But Richie is, I believe, Lebanese, so it's very Arab looking, and and he's super tall. He looks kind of like Slash from Guns N' Roses, super long hair, and had a leather jacket and everything. So every time we went through customs, they were searching our stuff so much because they were, I don't know, they really liked Richie. So, but we made it back, and then after that, I came home and I kissed my wife, and then I slept for 48 hours, and then I woke up because I'd already got my master's degree in teaching and started teaching summer school at Airport High, and then I taught for 27 years straight. And then Bedlam Hour was reborn. The reason we quit playing was I became a dad, and I just kind of made a personal commitment to myself. I wasn't going to be gone when my kids were in the house. And so I have 2 children. They're adults now. They have their own families and their own lives. They live in New York and New Orleans. And so as soon as they were settled, and I'd also survived cancer a few years ago, and that changes your mind a lot about things. And I was also retired. So it was time to get back in the game. And you all were so kind to put on the show for us a couple of years ago. And that was really the door that opened up opportunity for us again. And then we got signed to River Monster and Missing Fink Records. And we got to play a bunch of festivals. And we got a lot of cool things coming up. We're going to headline a festival in Canada this summer. So
That's cool.
We're excited about that. And it's cool. It's a lot of fun. So
that is awesome.
So it's a long story, guys, but it's a long time. You know, I've been in this game 42 years.
Yeah.
So, so it's cool.
So, I mean, there's still so much I'd like to touch on. If
Sure,
that's okay.
of course. We can talk as long as you want.
Okay, well, all right.
Here we go.
I'm here all night.
I mean, I kind of want to ask about that 90s period, just because, Columbia in the 90s is, with their hardcore scene it's pretty notorious in a way.
Yeah, legendary.
Yeah, legendary. Yeah,
sure.
So I mean, like, what was Columbia basically your main base of operation?
Absolutely.
Pretty much?
Yeah. So let's kind of break it down. So in Columbia in the 80s, the early innovators going way back, Fanatics. That's Nick Pagan. Nick lives in Vietnam now. Nick's a legend. Fanatics were one of the first punk bands, and they used to play this place called Von Hinman's, which was looked like the older kids, older than me. So when I was 19, these kids were 27. Okay, so that was their scene. We're talking late 70s, early 80s, and then really, if you look into our stuff on the internet, we're second wave of American hardcore. So we're 82, 83, right? And then late 80s. It's Bedlam Hour. It's Bored Suburban Youth out of Irmo, who later became Red Menace when Steve Sonic from Orangeburg joined the band. And then Anti-Schism.
Right.
Mentioned Anti-Schism earlier. Chris Bickle comes out with Inhumanity, which is a really, really great hardcore band. I think he coined the term emo violence.
Oh, look at
that. That's a genre that started with him and a couple of his bands friends from Europe.
There was like a venue called like someone's emo violence house party or something.
Oh, I don't know about that. That might have been after I left, because I left Columbia in '94.
Okay,
so I may have missed it.
Yeah.
So Inhumanity played, and then when I went back to grad school, because I graduated college in '87. I did the touring thing for a while, got into real estate, moved down to Fripp Island at 24, worked there a couple of years, still did the band long distance, got married, came back, went to grad school, age 26. I was working at the radio station again, this time as the graduate advisor, so I helped train the kids. And around that time, Stretch Armstrong gets formed. And so Stretch Armstrong and Bedlam Hour put out a split 7-inch in 1993.
Right.
So Stretch start playing at that time. Inhumanity, Ass Factor 4.
Right, yeah.
Ass Factor 4. And that's a couple of Rock Hill kids from the band Tonka with Kevin and Eric from Unheard. You've heard Unheard if you've heard the Stupid by the Grace of God 7-inch, the record that has Frankenberry Mosh on it. They're on that record. Yeah. And in fact, if you look at any videos of Ass Factor 4 or Unheard, Eric's Crate Head is the head that I recorded Frankenberry Mosh with. I sold them that amp. But then in '94, I got my first teaching job down at Andrews High. And so my wife and I moved out, and then I became a dad in '95. And at that time, I was doing a local pop punk band here in Myrtle Beach called Joy Buzzer with Brian McKenzie and with Jason Hearn on the drums. And Jason plays in the Bazooka Joe now. And with Sean Shealy on bass, and Sean's daughter Molly is the lead singer of Corrupt Faith.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and Sean played bass in Bazooka Joe back in the day, and now I'm jamming in Small City Rock, my other band, with Mark Holt, Bazooka Joe's original drummer, and I hang out with Daryl and Daryl all the time. So we're all still a family.
The whole big family.
How did you initially make the connection to Myrtle Beach?
Well, we, used to Bedlam Hour used to come down here and play, and we'd play Florence all the time, and we did a million shows with Bazooka Joe on the road. So we were family with those guys. But then when I came back down, so in 92, I was in grad school. There was a store called The Music Store. It was on Divine Street. They sold used amps and instruments, and they were a big sponsor of what we were doing. And Brian McKenzie was in there, and I knew Brian from Dead Cut Tree, his early grunge band. And we've always been friendly. We'd always see each other out and about. And we said, hey, man, let's do a project sometime. And so lo and behold, we got back from Europe in 94. I started teaching. I was living in Georgetown. I wasn't a dad yet. And so I'd come home from school every day, and I'd sit in my garage, and I had a bunch of old Vox amps and my drum set. Pretty much what I have now, different amps, but the same kind of thing. I'd sit there and just write all the songs. And I wrote the songs for the album Contact, which was our last record of the 20th century. And I invited Brian to play lead guitar on it. And so he did. And then we also formed the band Joy Buzzer. We did a little limited touring up in the Northeast. It was pop punk. And a lot of those songs that I developed with Joy Buzzer ended up being on the record Contact. And that's also kind of where I started swerving a little more in. I mean, Rock the Cradle was pop punk, but a little more into the sort of the 90s-ish pop punk style was then. After 94, and then Joy Buzzer would play with Prevail and some of these other bands, and we're good friends with them. But then after 94, 95, we did Joy Buzzer, 96. And then 97, I got a job back home at Fort Mill High. And I was a dad by then. Dylan was born. So Sherry and Dylan and I moved home to Fort Mill to be between her family in Charlotte and my family in Rock Hill. And then we were up there 20 years, and I didn't really do rock and roll music. I played on the praise team at church. Contemporary Christian music was brand new. It's the first time drums were in a lot of churches. I was a drummer for a praise team for a long time, and then ended up being a worship leader for a couple of years. And then in the interim, I really missed playing shows and things. But it was really hard to promote. I mean, this is really before good internet. It was before social media. But in the early 2000s, I went into a friend's studio and recorded a gospel punk record. Whoa. That had like all these old hymns that were like that I did punk. It's like Misfits, but they're old hymns. And it was called Mill Village Apostles. And then I got some friends of mine, and we went and did like 8 or 9 shows in some teen centers and stuff. We played Manifest up in Charlotte on their live stage, and all my students came out, my high school kids, and it was fun, but it was just too hard. I couldn't really do it because I had multiple jobs. I was teaching school in the daytime. For a while, I was directing an adult ed center at night. Then I was a Winthrop professor. Then I was a professor at University of Phoenix. And I was doing all the student media at the school for a 2,000 kid high school, yearbook, videos, everything. And so I would go to work at 6 in the morning, get off at 4, go home, kiss my family, grab something quick to eat, drive 4:30 to 5:30 to Charlotte, teach college from 6 to 10 at night, 4 nights a week, volunteer at the church on Sunday, and it was no time to do punk rock. And so that was kind of the grind until about 2017, and then my wife retired in 2012, and we decided to move back down to the beach area and moved to Pawleys Island, and things kind of eased up. All my gigs here with schools have been a lot easier, less time consuming. I play with a praise team about once a month now. I'm a utility guy. My anchor is bass guitar with that group, but I can also play drums, sing, 12-string guitar, 6-string guitar, whatever they need. I just try to fill in. A lot of younger people, so I do that. But that's how I connected with Brian. And then I reconnected with Brian when we moved down here in 2017 because I ran. Oh, okay. So how long have we been talking?
Like 10 minutes.
Okay, good. Okay. So I was teaching at Georgetown High. I went with my friend George and his girlfriend to see Alice Cooper play because I love Alice Cooper. And it was in Charleston before COVID. And so I'm there waiting in line to go, get my seat. And I see this guy. He looks like a cool-looking guy with long hair, rock and roll guy. He's got on a Bazooka Joe jacket. I said, that's Derelict. And he's got his wife and his son with him. It's River. And Miss Jenny. And I went up and said, Derelict. I had not seen him since the 80s. Well, since 95, because he was in Thunder P at that time. So anyway, so I'm like, Derelict, it's Chuck Walker. I'm still alive. He's like, bro, I am too. Can you believe it? And so we reconnected. And he said, hey, why don't you and Sherry come over to a cookout? So we went over to his house and had a cookout one night, had, veggie burgers and stuff. It was so fun. And just had a wonderful time. And Brian McKenzie came with his wife, and we reconnected. And at that time, I was writing, I've got like 3 albums worth of unreleased stuff that I've already recorded with him, but I was writing this prog project, and I was playing everything on it because I had time now that I was semi-retired. And it's called Astronaut Assembly at the time, but some of that stuff was going to come out on one of my solo albums. But anyway, he said, "You're writing stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Come over to the studio. Let's talk about it." So we started talking about it, started tracking, and I had written most of this stuff. Then, meanwhile, COVID happened. I finished writing 3 albums worth of stuff. After COVID, I came into the studio to start tracking it. Mm-hmm. So then, after that, Derek Roddy, the drummer we talked about earlier, his dad lives in Murrells Inlet, and so he and Callie were visiting, and we reconnected, and we went out to eat with our wives at Habaneros across from St. James High. It's delicious. Go check it out, guys. This show is sponsored by Habaneros. So, and so Derek and I were talking. I said, "Derek," I said, "our 40th anniversary is coming up. I'd like maybe to get together, do a show." He said, "Why don't we do a record?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I'd love to. Would you like to do a record?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to." "What are we going to call it?" I said, "Derek, let's call it Win $1 Million." He's like, "Win $1 billion." And that's where that came from. So that night I went home. I went to my practice space just like yours, and I wrote that album. And I wrote it in like one night.
What?
Nice.
That's crazy.
The only song that was not written that night is Uncle Sam Slam Kashi Mashi. Brian McKenzie wrote that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He wrote that because we were tracking some Bedlam Hour stuff in the studio. The other songs had already been written. And Johnny and Brian and I were sitting around the control room one night, 10 o'clock after tracking. I think we were working on the track $1 Billion. And he said, "Chuck, I want to talk to you about something, Brian. Bedlam Hour, when I think of Bedlam Hour, I think of fun, I think of cereal. Have you thought about writing another cereal song?" He said, "We're older now." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, there's this cereal, Uncle Sam's got a lot of grain in it. I buy it at Walmart." I'm like, "Cereals that make you poop." "Johnny, what do you think?" Johnny's like, "Well, what about Raisin Bran? That's pretty good." And I'm like, "What about Kashi?" And Brian's like, "Well, Frankie Bran Mashi could do like Uncle Sam Slam." I was like, "And Kashi Mashi."
Yeah.
And so I said, "Brian," and I wrote some notes on my phone and I sent it to him. "I want this to sound like Emmure. I want this to sound like Youth of Today. I want this to sound like Celtic Frost," whatever it was. I said, "Can you write me something?" Yeah. The next morning, 9 o'clock, my phone dings. It's the music for it. Like, it's perfect. I got the music. By 1 p.m., staying regular, more important than ever. Starting my day right, more important than ever. 40 years ago, I made the hardcore scene. Now I'm on 6 medicines and a CPAP machine. Some excavate their canals some eat Quaker oats like Wilfred Brimley, excavating their canals like President McKinley. I hope you find the way to better health, but be careful. Kashi brains activate with stealth. So it was done.
Awesome.
And then and the vocals on that are the first take scratch mix. Because once we got it, that was it.
Yeah.
And if you listen to those vocals, they go back to the Whiskey A Go-Go, July 1982, that first Fear show, because I wanted to emulate the singing style of Leaving from Fear. And you hear it in there. So it all connects. It all connects.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how we got connected with Brian. And then, of course, Brian's back with us again, and he is my musical partner on everything I do. We co-produce everything, and man, it's just such a fun journey. It really is. He's got his heart in the right place. He's a great guy. All these guys are great to work with. I've never worked with any musician that was difficult, seriously. And I've jammed with like 50 people in my life. I've never worked with anybody that was hard to work with, not nice. These guys have their heads screwed on straight. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
That's always good.
So now it's Bedlam Hours back.
We're back.
Swing, full time pretty much?
Not full time, because since I am kind of retired, we do a lot of shows.
Yeah.
We do a lot of shows. I try to. I'm trying to find work-life balance, and since I teach school, sell real estate, and play in several bands, the thing about being a punk band from South Carolina in the 21st century is you don't want to play too much because you're gonna not be special. You're going to wear out your welcome in a sense. And so I try to, especially our show, if you've seen us, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot out of me physically, to be honest. So I try to space out the shows enough to where it's an event. So we'll try to play every market maybe once a year. So for Myrtle Beach, the next show we're going to do is my festival, 15 Minutes of Bedlam Fest. That's going to be, and we appreciate you guys working with us as far as trying to work out the schedule. I think DC talked to y'all, but it's going to be probably the 22nd and 29th of August. The first night's going to be not hardcore, but rock and roll. So Small City Rock's going to play, but we're not going to play last. I would like to get a very famous goth rock band from Myrtle Beach who were huge in 2000s to play, and y'all know who they are, but it's not announced yet. So, but we're going to play like middle of the set that night. And what I do is I invite every band that we've met on tour, because we go to a lot of markets that helped us get shows. I invite them all to come play at the beach so they can get exposure. So that'll be the first night. The second night, hey, y'all want to play on it? We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about
it. Okay. The second night's going to be the hardcore night. So Bedlam Hour play on that one. And I'd love to have Bazooka Joe headline that show. Yeah. And then we're going to have we've invited bands from New Orleans, from Atlanta, from Wilmington, from all the markets we play during the year. But we try to get out about once a month if we can. Right. And go anywhere we can go within about 15 hours. And so that's what we do. As far as it's like grinding out a 30 or 40 day thing. Yeah. A lot of my guys have day jobs. They can't leave that long. I'm retired. I can. But physically, I don't know. If you look at like a Descendants tour or a Blondie tour, folks my age, they'll do 2 and 3. They'll take 2 or 3 days off, 2 and 3. There's a reason for that, because you got to take care of your voice. Yeah. When I was your age, we would go out 40 days. It's fine. I could do it. And I didn't have vocal training. I actually have a voice coach now, and it's been amazing. I feel like my voice now is as good as it was when I was 22. And it's because of my voice coach, Pamela Cannon Cook. And if anybody needs voice lessons, Pamela Cannon Cook's right here in Myrtle Beach, and you can reach out to me on Instagram, and I can connect you with her. But yeah, so to save my voice. And then also, since I have Small City Rock as well, I have to kind of balance those. And then I also play drums when I can for Eaten by Crows, which is Dre's project. So so about once a month. After this show in Rock Hill in 2 weeks, which is our first show there in 40 years, my plan is to take a few months off of the band because I'm doing real estate now as of today, and I've got to kind of get grinding on that, and I'm still teaching school full time. Yeah. So and then we'll do. So August is our next show here, and then we also want to partner with New Directions Homeless Ministries. We always collect things for the homeless there. We also might be helping form a new women's shelter, which is important to us. And then in September, we're going to do Punk Rock Family Reunion 3 Fest in Columbia, and that's something we do at New Brooklyn Tavern. In June, we're playing Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then we're doing Prescott, Ontario, Canada, and we're headlining Punk World Fest. So Punk World Radio is a Canadian punk rock station on the internet and also on terrestrial radio. And we get played up there, and we're really good friends with Brandon DJ Immortal, who runs that station, and he's invited us to play his first festival, and so we're excited about that, and we really love it.
First time in Canada?
First time in Canada, yeah. We haven't been there before, so should be good. So we're excited about that, and and then my plan after that would be probably to do maybe, 4 or 5 runs a year, and the sort of the strategic plan is we've still got about 8 more songs in the can that are going to be coming out as singles, and then that's going to come out as a record called No Grave Required, which is kind of cool.
I like that.
And then after that, looking in 26, we're going to do a greatest hits record. It's called Cradle to Grave. It's going to run from 82 really all the way to 2026, because we'll have some stuff going there. And then right now I'm currently writing a really heavy record. My goal is to write the heaviest possible record I can do, and it's going to be called Heavy Responsibility, and it's going to be all hardcore.
I love this.
And then we also have our live Bedlam record coming out, which is going to be a compilation of, we've recorded all of our live shows, so a compilation of our best performances from the live shows over the last 3 years. And then in 2027, the plan is to do a double album remastered Rock the Cradle from Positive Force, but we'll be working with River Monster and Missing Fink. And then we're probably going to also do a re-record of Rock the Cradle with my current lineup, run that through 27, and then my plan after that would be to take about a 4-year break, then come back and do a big 50th anniversary tour.
You got it all figured out.
Yeah, that's the plan.
I wish we need you in our band.
We should plan a thing where it's like, we should stop next week, and then we'll come back for the 50th.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
We won't do anything for 40 years.
Yeah, we have.
Well, my guys are younger
years,
than me, so they probably want to play more than that. But I'm also a granddad, so I like to have time with family.
Sure.
But, we'll
I like
see.
to stay home
It's
and
fun.
watch movies.
I just want to make sure if I go out that we're at the top of our game.
Sure.
I never want to
Absolutely.
go out when I don't feel like we're 100% there. And I have every confidence every time we go out. Those guys behind me have my back. They're blasting. I mean, they got hardcore down to a science. So all I have to do is love on those people, encourage those people, send out positive, vibes, PMA, mosh it up, throw cereal, just go crazy, throw out prizes.
I remember
That's all I have
seeing
to do.
that. I remember like because I
remember
glanced
sweeping it up.
in. Yeah, we swept it up afterwards because we got the message like, "Hey, we throw cereal out during our shows," and we were just like, "Okay."
You were so nice about that.
And then like I look. Because I'm just like glancing through the little window at Fresh Brew, like that door that goes in the main room, and I just see you at the box, just like chucking it, and then everyone's like doing the Frankenberry mosh.
Yeah,
There's a zombie walking around, and then like I think I went in there and got video of it. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, these people are going nuts.
Yeah,
And
they love that song.
that's so much fun.
So that I wrote that riff, but the way we came up with the lyrics going back to Anti-Schism. So Anti-Schism used to come over and hang out at my house all the time, and it was a beautiful September day in 1987. Scott and Liz from Anti-Schism were over visiting one afternoon, and we started talking about cereal and Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles, and I said, let's go buy some cereal at Food Line. So we went to Food Line, we ate cereal, and then I think the conversation was like, someday somebody should write about cereal. Then I kind of parked that conversation in my head. Spring of 1987, my drummer Brent Long at the time came over, and we're eating Frankenberry cereal. I had some leftover from Halloween or something. He's like, man, this is so good. I'm like, let's write a song. So Brent and I sat down and started writing those lyrics. I'm like, Bush was the president at the time, so I was like, President Bushaka told me the other day, and Brent's like, at the Food Line. I'm like, at the Food Line next to the gravy train. He said Frankenberry sucks, and I think he's gay. I said, eat lead, then I blew him away. I'm a ninja. To hell I'll send you.
Yeah.
I'm Frankenberry's Dirty Harry, die. And then it was like, Frankenberry freakouts rule the floor. Count Chocolate's mother was a whore. Blueberry's army in the rear. It's ninja time, your daddy's here. So strap on your boots and drop your drawers. The organ grinder will mop the floors. This is an all-out kung fu war. A grasshopper master soup du jour. Protein, vitamin, and then we just read the label. Protein, vitamin A, vitamin C, niacin. These are a few of my favorite things. Iron, calcium, thiacin, pantothenic acid. And that's the lyrics.
Wow.
That's incredible.
And then it's weird though, because I don't really like cussing that much, although I have cussed a little bit on my music. But so at the end, I don't know why I said "but." It's so stupid. It's like so goofy. I'm like, Frankenberry, he is my friend. He kicks Quiz butt to the very end. It's not very hard sounding, but it's okay. I'm not really a hardcore guy. I'm more of just like I'm just a Rock Hill kid at the end of the day. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you two more things.
Sure.
Chuck. You wanted to mention this.
Yeah.
You're the first person, and hopefully not the last, to give us these very generous gifts.
Everyone
the
listening
shirt.
that wants to come on the podcast,
Yeah,
you are now required.
There's a fee now.
Yeah, you guys have stepped up the game. Y'all better bring some merch out here. We got shirts, we got vinyl, CDs, stickers, coasters.
we got the full spread.
Well, here, you wanted to mention about this on the back. The open,
yes. Okay. So, in all seriousness, we love to have fun. But if you know me and if you listen to my music, you'll know that human rights is very important to me. Equal rights for everybody. I'm talking about rights for black people, white people, trans people, gay people, everybody, people around the world, not just Americans. We're one family. We have one home. It's planet Earth, and we can't be separated by politics and religion and all this stuff. We have one life. And so our mission every night when we sing that song, Stand Up and Fight, is to talk about standing up against racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, and to stand up for what's right. And that's going to be peace and love and equal rights for everybody. And so when I wrote this song, Open, which is one of our singles from the upcoming record, the lyrics are open heart, open mind, open eyes. I could never turn away. And guys, I'm telling you now more than ever,
for sure.
you need to use your punk rock powers, because we've got to stand up for everybody. We've got a society that's trying to erase trans people. It's the most evil thing in the world, to erase somebody's identity. You can't do it. Guess what? Trans people exist. Guess what? Black people exist. Gay people exist. People of all religions, Muslims exist, and we all need to love each other and get along. And so that's near and dear to our heart. And one thing we always try to do, the reason our show is, I try to run a family show. It's never going to be, nasty or anything. Nothing wrong with people that do that. But I want to have a place where people feel that they can bring their kids, that everybody can be welcome. And you'll notice we have a lot of gay and trans people love our band. They come out. And that's because they know we got their back. And so for me, growing up in a very open-minded household and just coming from a place of love, I got all that love in Rock Hill. I just want to make sure that we can pass that love on. Otherwise, at the end of the day, people have to do their own things with music. But if you have a privilege to be a musician, to have an outlet, to have a microphone, to have people listen to you, to watch you dance or whatever it is, why not use that privilege to help others? And that's really where we're coming from. And at the end of the day, even the music isn't really that important to me compared to that message. And I'm telling you, kids, now's the time to stand up and fight. It's no joke. This is no joke. This is go time. And so as much as we love to have fun and celebrate life, at the same time, we want to make sure that we're pointing people in a positive direction. And that we're supporting people. We don't want anybody to ever feel that they don't have a place, they're not welcome at a hardcore show. And a hardcore show it's a community, and that's so important to us. And it means the world to me because of all the wonderful people that have been good to me over the years. So
that's very well said. I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I agree. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's definitely the big goal with what we do with Myrtle Beach shows is to just bring, anyone that needs that kind of.
Come on in.
Yeah, come
we
on.
got love.
Porch light is on.
We got love.
Porch light
Let's
is
go.
on. We left the light on for you.
Yeah, come
You
on
never
in.
have to worry about anything. We got your back.
Yeah, it's.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. That's how it goes.
Sure. And you also brought your guitar if you wanted to play a tune.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We never had
so
this
is it cool
either.
if I play a song tonight?
That's absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right,
This
cool.
Is
Here we
This
go.
is the first two.
All right, cool. So this song's called Echoes and Shadows. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your song. 200 hopeful voices echo through these halls. This is your song. 200 hopeful shadows dance across these walls. Now, do you remember the first time that you went to a show? You saved up all your money so you could go. Do you remember the first time that you did a dance? It was terrifying, but it was worth the chance. Commit these names, commit these faces. Walk these halls, sit in these spaces. Commit them to memory for yourself. More than records on a shelf, these are the people who lived and laughed and loved with you. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows, on the streets of my mind. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows, I won't leave them behind. And when you leave here, you will go and do what you'll do. And I pray that the world is kind to you. And when you look back, I hope that the good outweighs the bad. And you remember the best days that you ever had. Commit these names, commit these faces. Walk these halls and sit in these spaces. Commit them to memory for yourself. More than CDs on a shelf. These are the people who lived and laughed and loved with you. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows. We're on the streets of my mind. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows. I won't leave them behind. This is your song. 200 hopeful voices echo through these halls. This is your song. 200 hopeful shadows dance across these walls. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows. We're on the streets of my mind. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows. I won't leave them behind. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows on the parchment of time. Echoes and shadows, echoes and shadows on the script of our lives.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
I love that.
A little bit of a mess up there in the middle, but oh well.
Ah,
Punk
who
rock.
cares? It's punk rock. That was so good. I loved that.
With that little change.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
loved
wanted
all
to
of
lean
that.
into. Do you know XTC,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
band? I wanted to lean into XTC because I love Andy Partridge's songwriting. So I was like,
Yeah.
it's like Hard Day's Night,
Yeah.
and this is a little bit like Soul Asylum. Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love XTC.
That's awesome.
Oh my God, I love them and the Beatles.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you
for
so
all
much.
all the
This was
stories.
awesome. I think we could do another episode, I think, with him too.
maybe.
There's
I'd
probably a
love to.
million more stories he's got.
Kevin and Andrew, you guys have been amazing. I'm totally honored that y'all let me come over here and talk tonight. It
We're
means the
honored
world
that
to
you're
me.
here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Where's all the Bedlam Hour stuff on the internet?
Okay, so Bedlam Hour Official on Instagram, Bedlam Hour on Facebook, Bedlam Hour Official on YouTube, Bedlam Hour on Spotify, 15 Minutes of Bedlam channel on YouTube, 15 Minutes of Bedlam podcast on Spotify, Small City Rock channel on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and then soon Chuck Gordon Walker's solo. Plus, there's bedlamhour.com website. And then we're also on Bandcamp, Bands in Town. Pretty much just Google Bedlam Hour. We're everywhere. And, yeah, you can just keep up with us and feel free to reach out if you ever need anything. You can also email me at bedlamhour@gmail.com if you want an interview or gigs or anything like that. And we also have merch stores up. So come on out and see us in Rock Hill. The 21st, we're playing from 8:45 to 9:15. We're playing with Squirt Vial and Orchids, and it's going to be so fun. And if you went to Fort Mill High School or Nation Fort High between 1997 and 2017, I want to see you there.
So hopefully they made it.
Yeah,
'Cause
hopefully
I don't know
they
when
made
this
it.
is.
I've
I
had
don't know when
several
this
people
comes out.
message me, and all my relatives and anybody that went to church with me, everybody I know up there, y'all better come out.
Right on. All right. Thank you again, Chuck.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for being
Appreciate
here.
it.
Hey, you like shows?
Yeah.
Hey, shows. You're nothing like a Myrtle Beach show. You got to go to Myrtle Beach shows at Myrtle Beach shows.
At Myrtle Beach shows to
For
find all the at Myrtle Beach.
There's a lot of shows on Myrtle Beach, but there's nothing like a Myrtle Beach show.
Trademark. We're trying. We're gonna get the website.
And you want to start a band? You don't play an instrument? Well, that's great. You know, that's a good first step.
Yeah, there it is.
The document What is it?
It's Google Doc. If you go to the @Myrtle Beach Show's Instagram, it'll be like, there's the description, and then there's like links right under it, and it'll go to that Google Doc. You can fill out you answer the questions, name, what you want to play, what kind of instrument, that sort of thing. You'll be on a list.
Height,
blood type, social security number. And then you'll be put on that list with a bunch of other people that also would like to start bands. And then maybe you can hit them up. Maybe they'll hit you up. And then you start a band. And then maybe we'll book you.
Yeah. And one more time, @Windley_band. All the social keep up with World of Windley. And that's it.
Yeah, we're playing shows probably. And then we're going to make songs probably.
Well, the songs are made.
Oh, the songs are made by now?
Yeah.
Man, we worked hard.
Yeah.
They were all great.
Well, Jay's just got to,
Yeah.
One more time.
You do that again. You do that. Can y'all make that? Can y'all make that not suck?
Well, that was terrible. But thank you again, Chuck and Devin. Go to hell and goodbye, everyone.
Bye.